infidel. Right? Now, I know you're feeding your family, you're taking care of your people, I got that. But we are 7 billion cells in a single living entity. And if one part of that entity dies, the whole entity dies. Right? Now, that's a whole other part of the philosophy we don't have really time to get into because I know I'm taking a lot of time as it is. But the question is, in a human body, let's stop Brother Price. In a human body, every cell in that body's purpose is to serve the body. No cell's purpose is to serve itself. Every cell's purpose is to serve that body. It optimizes itself so it can serve the body, not so it can serve itself. And when cells become self-serving in the body, we call that cancer. And so every individual, every cell in the body, its purpose must be to serve the body. So we as a group, black folk in San Diego, as it were, we have to optimize ourselves so we can serve the rest of the people better. So, but first, we got to serve our own. We can't have black folks running around hungry and homeless and unemployed and uneducated and poor, right? We have to take care of each other, take care of ourselves, take care of our own first. Then we don't become a true institution, as Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King said, until we're in a position to serve others. What's interesting is the thing we call the law of the harvest, which means if I take a single grain of corn and I put it in the ground, it's going to grow a stalk of corn. And that stalk is not going to have 1 grain of corn on it. It's going to have cobs of corn on it. It's not going to just have 1 cob of corn. It might have 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 cobs of corn. Every one of those cobs of corn maybe have 200 or 300 kernels of corn on it. So from a single grain of sand, not grain of sand, but from a single corn kernel, I can have thousands. That's the law of the harvest. It's interesting the planet was built that way, that this planet produces more food every year than everything on the planet can eat. There's 7 billion humans, hundreds of thousands of species, and yet this planet provides more than enough food for everything on the planet to eat. Now, why are people hungry? Because of politics. That's a whole other thing. But there's more than enough food. We grow enough food in the United States of America alone to feed the whole planet. To feed the whole planet, right? And we waste about half of it. How many times have you gone, see this, I'm gonna put this political piece in there. I might get folks gonna be mad at me because it happens every time. How many times have you gone to a banquet, to a gala, to one of these feast things, right? And they bring out the food, and they bring out more food than you can eat. They bring you a salad, then they bring you a plate full of food, then they give you cake. So they've already given you a whole day's worth of calories, then they give you cake too. And then when it's time to pick up the plates, how many of them plates still got food on it? But I'm willing to bet you ate more food than you needed to eat in the first place. You ate till you got full. And since almost all of us overweight already, we know we don't need to eat till we're full because that's too many calories. That's how we got overweight in the first place, right? So they give you too much food, you eat more than you need, and you throw half of it away. And this is a fundraiser. You wasted $10,000 worth of food on your $20,000 fundraiser. But see, so the planet provides more than we can ever use. And so there's no reason why when we come to a place where we're self-sufficient that we don't grow beyond that to be more than self-sufficient and serve others. The last part of the Nehemiah Project, the fundamental principle is that we have to reconstruct our families so that they are viable in this context. Now, maybe after we get ourselves viable, we can restructure the context and do something different. But until then, poverty, the number one component of poverty is being a single parent. And we know that what's happening with brothers and sisters is that the criminal injustice system keeps pulling us in and out of that system and depleting our resources as a community. And that's not accidental. That's deliberate and intentional. That's an overflow and an outgrowth and a permutation of the slave system. Then, when we do get out of that and we have work, we're working for folks who don't look like us, so they don't reinvest in our community. And then they come back and they take almost all the money that they gave us. They take 40% of our labor value before they gave it to us. Then when they give it to us, we go into debt to pay them back. That's called sharecropping, right? It's because all these institutions take money out of our pockets and few of them put anything of value back into our community. In San Diego, with an average of $40,000 per household and an average of 50,000 households, we're generating $2 billion a year. If we could get 1/10 of that controlled into some institutions that look like us and serve us, we could build everything we need to build. We're only 5% of the population, so it's not like we're going to start by taking over these institutions that are taking our money, but we could create our own institutions to deal with them in ways that help our community and bring value to our community that these other institutions do not put into our community. We only can do it if we build institutions that can interface with these institutions on our behalf. What's the thing that I think is missing most out of this entire conversation is this idea of identity. I'm going to have to erase a little of this because I do need the space. This part, y'all can always research. I'm going to leave that there. See if I can do it. You said the whole board's on it, right? Okay, so thing called identity. And my man, Nehemiah wrote a book called Know Thyself. I'm going to write that one up here. And in it, he describes, now don't get mad, y'all. This is just the scripture that he uses, right? It's an example. He describes a dog that can do circus tricks, right? He said, you get a dog, you take the dog, you can train it to do circus tricks. And that's great if what you want the dog to do is do circus tricks. So what happens when you take that dog and put it back in its natural environment in the wild? It can't hunt, it can't fight, it can't defend itself, it can't find food, it can't find a mate. If it found a mate, it wouldn't know what to do with it. It has been trained, but not educated. Mm-hmm. And the first problem with its education is it's been trained to do things that dogs don't do. It has not been trained or educated to do dog stuff. Our problem is that we have not been educated as to who we are. Now, y'all have all the books, The Destruction of Black Civilization, the Know Thyself, The Miseducation of the Negro, The Education of the Negro, all those books you need to reread them again. Because here's a challenge. You call yourself, a lot of us call ourselves African Americans. And I'm going to pause right here. Some of us call ourselves black. Some folks call themselves white. Some folks call themselves brown and red and yellow. Folks say, we're the colors of the rainbows. When's the last time y'all saw a rainbow? Let me show you the colors of the rainbow. Red. Where's the orange one? Orange. We don't got a yellow one because it won't show up on the board. Green. Blue. Purple. Whoops. How many people you know look these colors? Mm-hmm. This is the rainbow. Right? People are not the color of the rainbow. See, folks give you information but not education. Mm-hmm. People are not the color of the rainbow. There is no rainbow. There are no purple people, blue people, no green people, no orange people, and no red people like that. Except a few folks who get out in the sun and they actually do kind of get like that. But that's another conversation. I don't know which of these is right, so maybe we'll go here. We are all brown people. Right? Here's the whiteboard. How many people you know white like that? Here is a black. This is black. How many people you know black like that? You got on a black shirt, sir. You ain't black as that shirt. Even your hair isn't quite black as that shirt, right? We're all brown people. We are all shades of brown. 7 billion cells in a single entity. All of us shades of brown. When we get to that, we'll really be grown up. When we talk about serving others, we'll really be grown up. But that's a conversation we're not ready to have yet, because in America, black and white makes a difference. We think we're black, we think we're white. And if you think, as a man thinketh, know thyself, as a man thinketh, that's what he is. Here's the problem with African American. Names. You got an African name or you got an American name? Language. You got an African, do you know speak an African language? Or you speak an American language? Clothes. You wear African style clothes or you wear American style clothes? Food. Do you eat African prepared style food or eat American style food? Etc., 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 etc. So when I call myself African American, the American side of me, I can articulate that. That's clear what that is. Everybody understands when I say American. What does that mean? Well, I drive an American car. I might drive a Japanese car now. I might drive a car from anywhere now, right? But I wear American clothes. I eat American food. I speak American language. I read American books. I watch American television, right? And so the question becomes, well, then what part of you is African? What part of you is African? What part of your identity is African? Well, I'm obviously African. I said, dude, there's blacker people than you from Asia. There's blacker people than you from South America. So what makes you African? What's the African part of you? The name? My name ain't African. My name is French. The language? Habarigani? I can do a little bit of that. I can do a little bit of some other African languages. Clothes? Well, I got a little, okay, I'll take that one. Food? Do you know where the food, I got this one. How about people? How many of y'all know some African people personally? Right? But we call ourselves African. Here's the challenge. When a guy says, know thyself, and I call and somebody walks in the room, somebody will open that door, walk in the room and say, Mary! None of these brothers in the room are going to respond to that. Why? Because there's a blank space in my identity for Mary. You call Mary, I ain't got no idea what you're talking about. Because my name ain't Mary. I don't speak Mary's language. I ain't wearing Mary clothes. I don't eat Mary food. So in my mind, when you say Mary, there's a blank space. And when you call yourself African American and can't got nothing to stick in there for identity, you're schizophrenic. Because you only have half of an identity. So you're running around being American, but wanting to be African with no concept of how to do that. Uh-oh, did I use the wrong pen? Okay, it'll come off. Here's the deal on this know thyself African thing and identity. I'm not a really good drawing person, but I have it on. You might recognize that, right? And in the PowerPoint that I should have brought that and blown that up and put that up there. But here it's called images. It's called icons. Icons. So I got my little notes here. If you were to go up to El Cajon Boulevard, go up Euclid to El Cajon Boulevard, 54th El Cajon Boulevard, you turn left, you go west, what you gonna see? You're gonna see signs of Korean. Can you read them? Can you read them? Can you read them? I can't read them. But everybody who's Korean knows what they look like. And when they drive down the street, they're like, this my street. Go up to University Avenue, same direction, turn left. Then what you're gonna see? Vietnamese. And the Koreans and Vietnamese know the difference. The Vietnamese are like, this is my street. Go down into El National City, go on 805, get off at Plaza and turn right and go west again. You're going to see a whole lot of stuff that looks Filipino. They even call it Filipino Village, Greek Town, Little Italy. And they got images. I mean, you drive down the street, you see pizza, you're like, Italy. You drive down the street, what would you look for African? You drive down the street and you see a pagoda, you think Asian, right? You might think Japan. You drive down the street, what do you see? Where do you see the pyramids? Where do you see obelisks? Where do you see Ankhs? Where do you see Ginamis in San Diego? Where's the black identity? That's the power of icons, is that they help define identity. If you're driving down the street and you see an Ankh on a building, you know that's ancient Egypt, Kemet, right? You driving down the street, you see the Ginami on the building, that's West Africa, right? You know that, right? We develop our identity around those kinds of things. You see a brother going down the street in dashiki, as we call it, Buba, that's African. And you relate to that, and then you can begin putting identity to what it means to be African. Because those icons all come with information, identity, information, education. Life that transforms, life that transcends death. See. And when you know that, when you see that, that concept runs through your head and you recognize it as an African concept. When you see Girinami, only God, this creation is from eternity into eternity, and no one knows its beginning or end except God. Right? You begin to relate to those. And when that's what you have in your world, when there's a little Africa or an Africa town or a Kemet town or a Kemet, right? Then we can begin to build these things in our own image. Right now, almost all we have to go on, is what we've been given by the oppressor. We're functioning in his system, according to his way, her way, their way, right? So this is the most critical component of that is, the idea of honoring your ancestors, right? White folks don't honor their ancestors. I'm saying, let me take that back. White Western civilization doesn't give a damn about ancestors. Okay, so let me wrap this up. I'm giving you all of this, but let me wrap this up with this thing you need to know. And that is that this whole thing started about 2,500 years ago with a group of people called the Greeks. Prior to the Greeks, prior to Western civilization. So we need to take you outside of their thinking system and everything that's going on in their world and take you to the world as it was before they started giving us their perspective on things. Before that, everybody recognized this thing called the Neteru. If we talk about Kemet, the ancient Egypt, in the Medu language, they say the Neteru, right? Which is interesting because if you go into the Bible, let me take this through this differently. Neteru is plural, it means the gods, basically. Using the term gods is a terrible word, it's the English word that most closely approximates, but the term God in English has so much that goes with it that it's really not a good way of using it. But Neteru, before the Greeks came along, Every culture on the planet, which was a derivative of our ancient original culture in what we call ancient Egypt or Kemet, believed in a multiplicities of emanations and manifestations of the one God. There's one God. Everybody recognizes that. Ancient Egypt, so-called Kemet, one God originates everything. But everything doesn't stay as one. Everything comes into all these different colors, all these different shapes, all these different sizes, all these different smells, all these different powers and energies. And so before the Greeks came along, everybody recognized and appreciated, respected what we call the Netheru, or the gods. Because we couldn't make water. Still can't make water. You couldn't make earth. You didn't make universes. All these things were here and they were created before you came here. And we are dependent upon them for our existence. Like I said, air, water, food, clothing, and shelter all come from this earth. This earth is dependent upon the whole rest of the solar system for its continued existence. Otherwise, it flies off. If the sun disappears, all these planets will start flying off. So there's an order to things. In the ancient Hebrew, they called it Torah, law. Okay? The Greeks at some point, along with a group called the Etruscans, you can look them up, who eventually morphed all into what we call the Romans, who we now live in the derivative of their culture, right? Because they have the Romans, Roman Empire, Europe, then colonization. So we're all living in this, all this stuff we're messing with. The problem that we have is a derivative of that. The Greeks decided they didn't want gods. They wanted to be gods. They didn't want anything else controlling them. They wanted to control everything. They wanted to control the weather. They wanted to control the water. They wanted to control the land. They wanted to control the animals. They wanted to control each other. The Greeks wanted to be the gods. So they destroyed the gods. They came up with a philosophy that we are in control of our own destiny. Aristotle, Plato, Socrates. That we are in control of our own destinies exclusively. Now, nobody better stop to say, oh, so did you made yourself born? Oh, you made the air that you breathe? Right? So if all the water dried up, you just make some more? Right? Obviously, you're not those kinds of gods. You are not Netheru. Right? Now, you do have some power and you have access to power and you should use that power. But you should be careful how you use that power and should be respectful of the powers that came before you because they still control this stuff. And ultimately, I mean, we've seen it happen before. We see these gigantic bones of things we call dinosaurs. But at some point, the planet decided we didn't need no dinosaurs. So you can't find a single dinosaur on the planet. Not one. For how many years? So planet wasn't joking. And it can get rid of humans just as easily. Right? The planet, it's a big planet. It's 8,000 miles across. 24,000 miles around. Billions and billions of tons. So the Greeks came along. The Greeks said we don't want God. So the Greeks created a philosophical system that we now call Western civilization. And we've seen the outcomes of Western civilization. We see enslavement. We see environmental degradation. We see global warming. We see global collapse of economies, all of it. This is the outcomes. These are the byproducts of Western civilization. And so the bottom line is we have to go back to our own identity, and we need to create institutions that reflect our identity and our philosophical perspective. Because my personal belief is that we as Black people in America, as at the organ that we are in the human body out of those 7 million people, our responsibility is to repair and heal the body. Is to repair and heal the body. And so we've got to first repair and heal ourselves so that we are strong enough to go back and repair and heal the rest of the body. So that's all I got. Thank you very much, gentlemen, ladies, for your time. It's been a beautiful thing. And I end with this. Nuk hekau pui abem rei hati, raneturu heribati imrei, nuk raiaut nuk bafe hekau, imren wisser, imren heru, imren aishat. Peace. We're done.